Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to another episode. I'm Tess Carletta, and today I am joined by Lou Wilham. Lou, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to have you on today. Which of your books are you most excited to talk about today, and why? And you can say multiple ones. Lots of people do say that.
Well, I always find that the book I'm the most excited about is the one that I'm actually working on because I'm still in progress mode. So the book that I'm working on right now is an expansion of my Bay of the Dead verse. And it is something that I had written this character in a short story for an anthology that didn't get picked up. And everybody who read the short story, who beta read it for me, was like, okay, how do I get you to write a full novel with Wendy? And I was like, okay, I guess I'll write a full novel with Wendy. So it's going to be Wendell Blackthorn and the Knife of Death.
Okay, I'm already hooked. What kind of book is this? What are we getting ourselves into?
So it's an expansion of the Bay of the Dead verse, and the Bay of the Dead verse is my cozy urban fantasy universe. So I have several different series in the universe. The very first one, which was Witches of Moondale, which is like sapphic practical magic. I have Hunters of Ironport, which is like Buffy but gayer. I have the Fae of Eventide series, which is Cozy Fae Mafia. And then I released History Will Call Them Tombmates, which wasn't set in any of the small towns that I had previously worked in, but instead was set more internationally. And that was like The Mummy but gayer and slightly more haunted. And this connects to that. So Wendy is one of like Bat's frenemies, and Bat is the main character of History Will Call Them Tombmates. And it's an adventure that he's on. So, yeah.
You know, that's really impressive that you have all those different, series going and everything. And, I met Lou back at a convention last year, a convention that won't be named. And when you see all the books lined up together, they are just so beautiful, and you have a very hard time picking which one to read. So, of course, you have to read all of them. But of your many books, do you have a favorite character that you've created? And who is it and why?
So, I think my favorite character that I've created is Russ from The Hex Next Door. I actually just finished drafting the final novel in that series a couple of months ago. And I was thinking about the dedication. I've realized that, The Hex Next Door, which was the first book in the cozy urban fantasy universe, was the book that got me a lot of the readers that I have. They found that book and they were like, oh, and that's how a lot of people found me. So I found my readers that way, but I've also made a lot of friends that way at the con that shall not be named. One of my table gremlins that came with me there had met me at LavenderCon the previous year. And they met me because they came up to me and they were like, oh, I've read The Hex Next Door. That book is great. And I was like, yeah. And then we became friends because they read my book and they liked what they read and they liked the person that was behind the book. So now we're best friends and talk every day.
Aww.
So I think it would be Russ because of all the people she's brought into my life.
Oh, I love that. I definitely think that's something fun that indie authors maybe get to experience more than trad authors, in terms of a reader is I really like your book, and you're like, okay, well, we're best friends now. I don't make the rules.
Yes. Except for Chris decided they were my best friend. They barnacled onto me versus the other way around. And I was like, this is fine.
You know, it worked out for you, though, it sounds like. So that's good.
It did. It did.
What drew you to that kind of cozy, horror-y, supernaturally type subgenre vibe?
I think because I was so obsessed with Sabrina and Charmed when I was growing up. Those were my jam. Were, the 90s supernatural shows that kind of have gone away now. We don't really have any of them anymore.
Yeah.
When I started writing The Hex Next Door, admittedly, I really wrote it originally because I was going to a book signing event that was witch themed. And I was like, oh, I don't have a witch book. I should write one. Why don't I have one? That's weird. I should. I love witch books. So I wrote one, and it just became kind of this way for me to access that witchy vibe that I really loved back in the 90s that I kind of lost.
I feel like they try to capture the vibe of those 90s shows, and it just falls flat every time. So it's good that you're keeping it alive through your books. What are some stories that inspire you?
I read pretty widely. I read a little bit of everything. I like mystery, I like sci-fi, I like fantasy. My favorite book is This Is How We Lose the Time War. I read it every 6 months. But lately, I've been reading a lot of Danmei, which are the English translations
Yeah.
of Chinese web novels. And I got really big into those with Whitney Spradling, who is another author I'm really close with. I think we read The Heaven Official's Blessing. And after that, I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be a thing now that we do.
That seems to be the one that draws people in the quickest.
Well, ironically, like, that was the first novel that I read, but I got drawn in by The Untamed and the anime version of The Untamed, which I had seen another artist who did fan art for Yuri on Ice back in the day, who I was still following, did fan art for the anime, and I was like, oh, what's that? And I went and looked up the anime and watched it, and then I watched The Untamed, and then I found the novels.
I mean, that's kind of how it's got to go. Like, you got... So there's always like a pipeline of some sort where you're like, the anime to Danmei pipeline is probably quite profound and true and real.
It's just a straight line.
It's just a straight line.
It's just a straight line.
What do they say? Oh my god. The thing with two circles and they connect in the middle. Holy cow, what's it called?
A Venn diagram.
The Venn diagram is a circle.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay. What are some things that you love to explore or revisit in your writing?
So I do a lot of things on purpose, but then I also do some accidentally that have been pointed out to me as, beta readers go through and they're like, oh, it's a lewd book, has to be a lewd book. If it's a lewd book, this is happening.
Yep.
So some of the things I do on purpose are, I have a lot of found family. I have a lot of like the underdog or the outcast is the main character. My main characters, like in Witches of Moondale, Russ is one of the leads, and she's a necromancer who was, essentially pushed out of her hometown because everybody thought necromancy was gross, and comes back 11 years later. That's where we pick up in The Hex Next Door. And then in Hunters of Ironport, Eric is a Venator which is a vampire hunter, but all the vampire hunters are kind of treated as like exterminators. They're like, yeah, you got a vampire problem, you call the plumber. Like, they don't treat them with any respect. And my current work is Wendy is a blood witch, and everybody looks down on that because they're like, why do you have to be a blood witch? But Wendy is a blood witch because of the fact that he actually has his magical abilities are weak. So he essentially has a chronic illness where he can't do spells the way that everybody else does. He can't do magic the way that everybody else does. So he has to use blood, but it's looked down on. So I like to do that a lot. But some of the things that I do on accident are political bodies that are used to doing things the way that they do. And the main character comes in and goes, yeah, just because we've always done it that way doesn't mean it's correct. So there's, the Board of Magic in Moondale. There's the Council of Creatures in Ironport. There's the Court of Families in Eventide. And I haven't really introduced... Oh, no, I have a university in Tombmates and Wendell's book. That's kind of like needs to be adjusted because they've spent so long doing, yeah, this is the way we do things. That doesn't mean it's right.
Oh my gosh. How long have you been publishing books for?
Since 2019. And I started with novellas. So I have 6 novellas, I have a short story, and then I think I have 20-some novels.
Oh my gosh. I always love hearing how much people are able to accomplish in the time span since they've been publishing. And that's very impressive. Whew. It's probably very good for your readers who discover your backlist and they're like, oh my gosh, a banquet, a feast.
Yeah, I have been to events before where I do my spiel and people are like, okay, I'll just take one of each. And I'm like, all right, cool. There's a bunch here.
What drives your storytelling? What motivates you to write?
So I don't really have anything super inspiring, I guess. Because I know a lot of people come to the page with I need to write because I have something to say. And I feel like I'm less of that and more of, no, one day this character just started talking and they didn't shut up until I started writing the book. So that's usually what drives me to write, is I have a character that just seems like they're not going to stop. And I build a world around them to the point where I've had books like some of the stuff that I wrote before my Cozy Urban Fantasy universe, Villainous Heroics. The main character in that, I had a whole monologue that Dusk did that never got into the book because it didn't fit into the world building after I had started building it. I was like, this doesn't actually fit, dude, but you were just talking out of your ass, I guess. Okay.
Oh my goodness. What do you hope to accomplish with your stories?
I hope that readers feel seen I've had a lot of readers come to me and say, hey, this character really made me feel heard. They made me feel like, somebody knew how it was to be me. Like, I've had readers tell me that they love seeing, particularly with the urban fantasy books, they love seeing characters like themselves, like queer characters that weren't originally represented in those 90s shows, but represented in that setting now.
Yeah, I feel like the queer community flocks to certain types of old 90s media in a way that, like, even if we weren't represented back then explicitly, or if we were represented poorly, like, we can still see glimpses of ourselves. So I think it's really nice that we get to recreate that vibe and that aesthetic and that type of storytelling and have characters like us explicitly in it without all the weird 90s homophobia and everything.
Yeah, and that is something I like to do. Like, all of my stories are queer normative. So the main issue in any given book in that universe isn't that the characters, are married to a woman or they're trans or whatever. The main issue is that they do necromancy or...
They're in the mafia.
Yeah, that's the problem. Not who they love.
It's like it's a novel concept or something that we should adopt in our real world, actually.
Gee, yeah.
What's the number one thing you want readers to take away from your books?
Like I said, I just kind of want them to feel seen. And I like writing books that, while have a lot of angst in them, and I have done this, having cozy disembowelments in a book. I think we talked about this on one of our panels.
Yeah, we did.
So I have the angst and I have, the blood and the gore and all that, but I like having the reader know that at the end of the day, the characters are going to be okay. And that's kind of like a comfort. They're comforting. I like bringing my readers a little bit of comfort because the world is just kind of right now.
Yeah. We've talked about this on this podcast before, where we tried very desperately to define what exactly cozy fantasy is and like cozy romance. And I think the thing that like always sticks out to me about that conversation that we had is that we give the characters a soft place to land. So like even if there's like disembowelment, or in my case euthanasia, like the characters are gonna be okay. Like we're putting a little soft pillow underneath them by the end of the book, and they get to fall gently into it and live happily ever after. And I think that we decided in that conversation that as long as you have that soft place to land, be like a given, that it doesn't matter if you like throw a little bit of disembowelment or like I don't know, mafia action or whatever else is going on in your worlds.
Just a little torture for flavoring, it's fine.
How are you gonna have hurt comfort without a little sprinkle of torture now and again?
Exactly.
Obviously, you said you've been writing for a while. What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
So this is something I always tell authors, because I have had young authors like high school age or early college come up to me at events, and they always say, what's a big piece of advice that you would suggest? And I always tell them, find your community, because I don't know where I would be without mine. My friends that I've made while writing, the co-op that I work with, who help support me, my readers. If I didn't have the community, I wouldn't be here, because I go to them to help me, roast spaghetti at the wall and go, hey, but what if I did this? Nah, I don't like that. What if I did this instead? Or I go to them to help me beta read, or we share information about queering if that's something we're feeling like we want to do, or marketing tips or whatever. If I didn't have my community, I wouldn't be here. So find your community. And finding your community sounds daunting, but I think it's easier than a lot of people think it is. But I'm also one of those people who, like, I'm not afraid to be ignored. I'm not afraid of the no. Like, I will message someone on Instagram and be like, hey, you want to be friends? And if they ignore me, okay. That's fine. Nothing changes for me. I just go on my day.
Another thing, too, is, like, when you're building that community, sometimes you might connect with someone and then discover that, like, this is someone I can keep close to me, and then you might find someone else and you're like, this is someone I can keep like in my community close at hand. Like, you don't have to become like soulmates with every platonic community member that you engage with, that you can have different types of people in your circle. It's really nice to have a really diverse group of people around you to have people like in your corner and just making your online space a very beautiful place.
I work with a co-op, an indie co-op, right? And like not all those authors do I talk to every day. They're not all people that I run to every time I have a problem. But I do have a couple that, like, they have my personal cell phone number and I talk to them every day and I see them multiple times a year. And they're, like, my best friends. So you have best friends and then you have co-workers, and that's okay. You don't have to be best friends with every author you speak to.
I think sometimes it's just nice to know that you're in someone's corner as like a little cheerleader being like, yeah, do the thing. And they're like, yeah, do the thing back. And then you've got people in your life who hold you accountable and are just closer to you.
Yes.
It's important that when you're building the community, you keep in mind that not every single person is going to play the same role.
Yes. And it's also kind of important to note that, like, I have an author who works with us who has come to me before and been like, yeah, you know, I tried to reach out to someone else and they, like, ignored me. And I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You're just not. And not everybody has the bandwidth to sit there and talk to 20 people every day. So it's just, you have to accept that. You have to accept that some people you're just not going to click with, and that's okay.
Yeah. So, Lou, where can people find you and your books?
My website is louinprogress.com, and I'm mostly on Instagram, lou.wilham. That's WILHAM.
And you can find me on Instagram at tess.carletta or at tesscarletta.com. And you can find the podcast on Instagram as well at Right Here, Right Queer Podcast. The first right is with an R, the second right is with a W. Lou, thank you so much for joining me today. It was really nice to talk with you and reconnect with you, so thank you so much.
Of course, it was nice speaking to you too.
We'll be back with another episode next week, so join us next time.